Welcome to another MarketMuse content strategy webinar in our series. I'm Jeff Coyle, the co-founder and chief strategy officer for MarketMuse. And today we're talking about some topics I'm really excited about. And I've got someone that's way qualified to have this discussion. And we talk about how to conduct a content audit. And it's about secrets learned from having done hundreds of thousands of crawls and site analyses. All right. So now we have an awesome guest today. One of my favorite software solutions. Patrick Hathaway is director of Sitebulb. Sitebulb, I'm going to let him tell you a little bit more about it. But I'd also, Patrick, if you cover how you got into this, how it came to be, kind of what is your current mission, and a little bit about you.
Welcome. Awesome. Thanks, Jeff. Thank you for having me. So my name is Patrick Hathaway. I'm co-founder of Sitebulb, which is a website crawling and auditing tool. So it gets used for technical SEO audits, content audits, all that sort of stuff. And like many founders and co-founders, I just wear a ridiculous number of different hats. So I get involved from product design to customer support, writing tons of stuff all over our website, pretty much everything. So yeah, in terms of Sitebulb, if you do lots of technical SEO audits, either for clients or in-house teams, that's pretty much what Sitebulb's designed to help with. And we got into this through a side swipe, really, from our original product, which was URL Profiler, which was more specifically used for things like content audits and for link audits at the time. And it was a sort of data collection tool. And we realized after a couple of years doing that we wanted a way to help users collect their own URL data. And so we started building a crawler. We looked out there at what everyone else was doing in the marketplace, and we were kind of unsatisfied with what was there, and we thought maybe there's an opportunity here to build something. So we kind of built it in our vision, and it was essentially the product was designed in how we liked doing content audit, technical audits for SEO, and that's what we built. And we had a few like cool, interesting features that we came up with. The most notable being the crawl maps, which you will have seen, and that sort of helped us get some early traction. And we kind of doubled down on the bits that made us different from all the other crawlers out there. So yeah, we've been doing that for nearly 6 years.
Amazing.
And yeah, very recently we've launched a cloud version, so it's going now beyond the confines of the desktop, which is always what it's been. So we're now sort of got options out there for pretty much anyone who needs to do technical SEO.
Wonderful. And thanks for that detail. As somebody who's built a focused crawler-based search engine in the mid-2000s and who's put instances of Xenu on dedicated servers from even before that, I love the product and the product progression. I think it's natural. And if anyone is interested in going to check that out, we'll certainly plug it, walk through how to get there. But I did want to catch up with you on, you say technical SEO, right? So, there's aspects of having access to a crawler that relate to technical SEO. There's also aspects that relate to content and how it fits into your strategy, understanding information architecture. There's aspects of it that get into competitive analysis. So how do you fit this kind of solution into the typical team strategy, or maybe somebody who might say, hey, that's just for technical SEO. It's not for me. Like, who is the audience that should want to be doing this but isn't doing it today, or doesn't have, crawling and rendering and structural analysis as their typical quarterly checklist, monthly checklist, right? I mean, I don't think my crawlers stop crawling on my machine or have in years. So how do you integrate that? How does it fit into the typical strategy for a team? Or is this just something that, you should relegate to your tech SEO or agency?
Yeah. So, I think when you're talking about technical SEO and technical SEO audits, and when you're looking at your website from a technical perspective, and by that, I mean, you're talking about indexability and the performance of your web pages and all those sorts of things. That is the SEO's job, right? That is what they should be doing, or the SEO team. But outside of them, you've got anyone involved in any aspect of content strategy, anyone in sort of writing or being responsible for content on a website, having access to a crawler or a crawl solution that can help them build an inventory. That's really what you can then use the crawler for, is to help you build the inventory. So it's not necessarily looking for all the same things that an SEO would look for, but it's going, right, well, how do I get my collection of pages? What does my universe of pages look like? And then start pulling in, this is what crawlers do. This is what the MarketMuse inventory product does, is pulling in other relevant data points and sort of smashing them together and going, right, now we can use that to make other decisions, and not just about the content itself, but also about the content strategy. And I think really that's where content audits come in. So I certainly don't think crawler type products are only for technical people or SEO people. That is the primary use case for it. But then as soon as you move into any kind of strategy and you want to understand actually what is the makeup of the website, how does it hang together, and how do we start making informed decisions about what we want to do next, that's really where a crawler product or anything that can help you build an inventory is really, really valuable.
Nice. Yeah, I think a lot of teams get caught up with, it's almost like they don't go into taking in a content inventory or content auditing solution, whether its purpose is technical, whether its purpose is something else. In MarketMuse case, our main core product in our premium offering is a page and a topic inventory, where we're building a universe of all the concepts that live around your entire site, everything you've tried to rank for, everything you've tried to write about. And then we're giving you the lens of all the page topic combinations. We're giving you the lens of that so that you can prioritize content plans and say, ooh, these are quick wins. I need to invest lots of money in this concept because I'm not doing it now. A lot of times the lift of, building a content inventory, because they used to be so manual, they weren't technical. It was a manual effort, not about crawling. It was somebody's spreadsheet, as if they were, profiling it out of their table of contents. And where we've advanced this is you can start with a crawl and then take it in a lot of different directions. So it's not about prioritizing projects, right? It's about knowing what projects you might want to take on with this type of technology. And so from a technical side, what would be the biggest kind of projects that you prioritize or expectations? I mentioned Zeno, and for Inside Baseball technical SEOs, it was one of the first automated link checkers. Link checking is one thing, but what is the list of, all the ways that this type of solution can provide value and, that a content strategist might not know about?
Yeah, I mean, so it's easy to accidentally fall into all the sort of SEO things, right? But like even talking about links is a valuable thing to think about, because that's what Zeno was essentially built for. Because you have a website which grows over time, and it's so easy to think, even with a small website, right, I'm on top of this, I'm in control of this.
Right.
But as new things get launched, as new people, different teams get involved in the website, they might own a different little section of the website, things start to break and things start to fall to pieces, and you don't know that these things are broken until you use some sort of automated solution that's going to go through every single page and actually tell you what it's finding. And that's what the broken links is about. And so broken links are bad, not just for search engines, but they're really bad for users, right? You're on a website, you're looking through the content, oh, read more here, cool, I'll click that, take you to a 404. Okay, you're instantly dissatisfied. You don't feel like you're getting the value. Maybe you're going off the page. So it's a big user experience factor. So that's one level of it, and it can go to extreme depth of technical know-how into, right, well, the page speed performance on this web page is really poor, and this is why, and these are all the things you can do about it, right? But having the baseline overall, well, I've got an idea of what the experience is like on this website for our users. on kind of an aggregate level, right? In general, the performance is okay, but then you can start looking at what's it like from a mobile friendly perspective. You can go into accessibility. So how does this website hold up when you've got users with disabilities, such as issues with sight, right? Actually, what's the experience like for them? So there's so many levels it can go into, beyond just thinking about, oh, this is just tech SEO, right? This is just the technical stuff. It actually really starts to bleed into what does the experience feel like to users, and that's really where it starts to become more interesting for people interested more in content than the tech SEO side of things.
Yeah, absolutely. And I want to get into the content side too, but one major use case is if you've had historical migrations, if you're doing migrations, if you have lots of redirection, making sure that piles of garbage don't start collecting inside your house, because so as a function of knowing where those things have existed, is it happening, is everything happening the way you expect it to? An editorial leader should want to know whether things have changed in ways they don't expect, right? I mean, and that's kind of the message here. It's certainly, are search engines able to analyze this site the way that I expect them to? But if we've made any changes, those are huge, right? And so you're getting, and also you're getting all like almost like the baseball card, all the details of every page too. So you're like managing canonicals, managing redirects. What are some of the other things that, if someone's never used this type of solution, which you would be amazed how few have, that they should be thinking about as far as that goes? And I do want to get into content as well, because major insights that I see teams glean when they pick up these types of solutions.
Yeah, so I mean, some of the big ones, which will I think be really familiar, people will have heard about a lot. Duplicate content is an enormous issue, and it's not. And there's a lot of misconceptions about duplicate content and what like the sort of the penalties of it, and it's not so much that as you're actually getting penalized for it. It's that a lack of uniqueness makes it very difficult for search engines to differentiate your content from other content that's out there.
Right.
So yeah, duplicate content itself is a big topic, and a big reason for using crawlers, because they can tell you at scale when you've got duplicate content or even similar content, right? These pages are very, very similar. They're doing a very, very similar job, which then starts to fall into search intent and cannibalization, all those sorts of things. And then your typical on-page signals, so making sure you've got titles, H1s, meta descriptions all set up, and the right sort of length. And that can go into word counts as well, so you can start to identify, right, we've got really pages with really thin content, like less than 50 words on a page, right? This content that's likely, not always, but likely to be very difficult to actually provide value to users. Indexability is a very big one. My opinion about auditing from a technical SEO perspective is sort of starts with indexing. Can search engines crawl your website? Can they render your content? And then once they've done those two things, are they indexing the right stuff? And so that's not just can my pages be indexed, but also you might have a whole load of pages which you don't want customers to find. You've got like hidden areas or stuff that's just like junk, right? You don't really, you have to have it for legal reasons or whatever, but you don't really want search engines finding, and making sure that the right stuff's indexed. And that requires some technical know-how yourself, and it requires a bit of understanding of the site and what it's trying to do. But indexability it can be a really big problem. If you set canonicals up the wrong way, you can be giving really terrible signals to the search engines, and that they're going to end up doing the wrong things. You could look at structured data. So that's again, a reasonably new topic that's sort of sprung up in the last few years. But making sure that when you've got structured data on your website, it is satisfying validation in terms of schema, but also then for the Google search features. So you can have you can be ranking 10th in the listings, but if you've got the right kind of search features, you can get bumps from all over the place. You can get featured in panels, you can get featured at the top of the page and feature snippets, and you can get your content included in different ways in the search engines by having the right kind of structured data. So there's a whole load of specific sort of feature level stuff that you can do. And then I think, like, just to come back to what you were saying before, regarding migrations being a way that, you know, you can end up with a messy house.
Right.
I think any length of time, unless you've got a brand new just built site and you've just launched, at that point in time, doing SEO, crawling your website, I don't know, you get minimal value, right? Other than doing basic checks, you're not going to get a ton of value. But when you've had a website that's been hanging around for a few years and it's had different people working on it, there will be muck all over the place that you just don't know about. And like the big thing to think about when you're thinking about anything like this is that we no longer build websites one page at a time, right? That is long gone. Everyone's using CMSs now, and all CMSs are built using templates. So there is maybe 5, maybe 10, maybe 20 different page templates that underpin how content is designed and fits together on your website. And when any content creator will be going in, choosing a template, or, you know, having options of which template to choose, and they're building their pages around these templates. Technical issues almost always exist at the template level. Understanding which templates are problematic, fixing those templates is the way that you can quickly, you know, level up your site from a technical perspective.
Yeah, I mean, such a great list, and I think that now, you know, to transition to the way that content strategists think, and that what they should value is, first of all, the C-suite needs to be able to validate, regardless of the size, that what they think the site is actually what the site is. That's the revelation that I typically have with teams with their content inventory and their page inventory. It's, do you realize that this is actually what the site is, right? What do you think it is versus what it actually is? And what does that mean? It means we have piles of near duplicate pages, okay? You didn't intend on having piles of near duplicate pages. So often people are like, oh yeah, but it's not a penalty. Or they're like, yeah, oh yeah. But did you intend on that? Is that what you want it to be, right? Same with thin content, same with content that, you know, structured data sounds so yucky and so technical, but does the editorial lead know that, hey, if you put this structured data right, it's more likely that those pages will be featured more prominently, or featured in a particular search result feature, or even some people are reusing structured data. It's not just Google, right? Where they're positioning them, they're looking for things with particular structured data to acquire links. You know, so there's a lot of situations there where it's not just about the fact that you get 4 stars on your review type content. There's so many different, like, almost, it's like free bonuses you can get for your content that are going to enable it to show in more places. So I always love the revelation of somebody telling me what they think the site looks like or is structured, and then seeing it visualized in a crawler solution. One thing that happens a lot is you'll have the conversation with a team and it's like, oh my gosh, the site looks like a bunch of silos, and the silos are basically the silos in my organization. I mean, one of those like revelatory moments where, wait, I'm not allowed to touch this section of the website, and it's on an arm over here. My site is on this arm over here. We've got, you know, and like those teams don't talk to each other. It's so amazing how frequently a company's org structure will model the, you know, the problems of the business. So I always like to say, you know, what your content your information architecture can often say a lot about the value that people place on content within your organization, whether they think that content should be separated from, let's say you're a SaaS org, you know, product pages, right? We're not allowed to touch each other, right? They're not woven together elegantly. Or do we even have content that tells the story of the buyer journey? So getting into that will glean insights about content strategy. You will be able to say, oh my gosh, you can't get from this to that, right? That's huge, right? You can't even get from this section to that section. I mean, those are things that one can have like ready to talk about. And most effective instances I've seen is where content strategists are taking this to, the leadership group and saying, well, yeah, we've got a problem here because, these content items are supposed to be, talking to one another, grow. You expect our leads to convert, right? But nobody, the lead can't convert without a human intervention because our website doesn't do that for us. So I love those connections. So from your standpoint, I know you were talking about like, do I have particular types of content, buyer journey stage analysis, those types of things. How do you integrate that? Let's just say we do love the way that our site's structured. Okay, cool. Well, how do you take that to the next step with a content audit?
See, I always thought that content audits are sort of underpinned by a couple of key principles, which if you don't sort of agree with, then maybe you don't bother doing content audit. But right, the first one is kind of what you were just saying there, right? It's a falsehood that more content is necessarily a good thing, right? Like just having content teams just producing stuff all the time in silos, in vacuums, not really understanding if it's doing the job that it should be doing. I think that's a trap that's very easy to fall into, and without direction, that can be bad. Not is bad, but can be bad from an SEO standpoint. It can be bad from engagement, conversion, and helping allow people, like you say, move through the buying funnel, the buying journey that you want them to go down. So I think that's the first principle, and the second principle is like you don't know what you don't know. Right. If you're not measuring and analyzing things, you're just making guesses at what decisions you're making. Right. All your decisions are just going to be guesses. So for me, content audits are about finding issues and opportunities, and not a lot more than that. Finding issues and opportunities eventually, so that you can go, right, well, we've got a plan here. We've got a plan of action. We've got some short-term quick win stuff. We've got some longer term stuff that we are now going to need to feed back into our content strategy, because we now know X, Y, and Z, and that is what you should be aiming for at the end of it all.
No, I love that. You're doing all this work in order to basically prioritize initiatives, projects, or content creation, content updates. So a lot, let's get into the challenges with that process, the implementation process, the output of the inventory. Because an inventory used to be, I have a book I carry around with me. It's Content Audits and Inventories. You can look it up. It's like one of the oldest books ever written about the topic. It's so manual. It's so painful. People they're talking about, this being a once a year process. And the dream, obviously, with MarketMuse and solutions, from a technical side, like Sitebulb, is no. This is always on. This isn't twice a week, twice a month. This is once a month minimum. This is what you can do, because prioritizing that quick win can have a huge impact on the viability of your business.
Yeah.
But how do you deal with situations where the output of these audits don't have direct relationship to something that's, maybe the company gleans as or understands as valuable? There's so many technical SEO improvements where you're like, okay, how do you prioritize these, right? Does this directly relate to revenue? How do you get those in a state where do you try to make the business justification before you have the problem, or do you do it after the problem? Because I think a lot of teams, they want to fix something and then immediately it's like traffic's going up. We fixed this technical SEO problem. That's not really how it works, right?
Yeah, so I mean, do you mean here in terms of technical SEO or in terms of content audits? Because
technical SEO, and then I'm gonna ask the same question on content, but yes. Mm-hmm.
So I mean, so when it comes to technical SEO, like when you use a tool like Sitebulb, again, not to sort of pitch it or anything, but we have embedded within it different issues and opportunities that are automatically picked up by the tool, and it will tell you, right? And it will say, this is critical, this is this is a high importance, this is medium, this is low, right? And what that essentially comes down to is anything that's critical is going to impact the ability for your site to either be indexed, either be crawled, rendered, indexed, or ranked. Any of those four really, really important things, because if your pages can't be crawled, okay, you've got a problem. If your pages can't be rendered or rendered properly, you've got a problem. If your pages can't be indexed, you've got a problem. And if it's something that's going to affect your pages being ranked, you've got a problem. And they're problems which literally affect the ability, or like the crawler, the search engine accessibility of your website. And actually, if your stuff is going to end up in the index and it's going to end up giving you clicks. So from a technical SEO perspective, we always will focus on basically saying your critical issues are the ones which you need to spend most time on. And they're, those four things that I said. But then also, what's the scale of the problem? Like, how many URLs are affected here? And what are those URLs, right? So you could have a critical problem on one page that's buried deep in the infrastructure. You don't really care about it. Okay, well, it's not a problem, right? So it's not worth your time doing it. But then if you've got something which is affecting 50% of your pages, or on your homepage, or your key pages, well, then it should be like jump to the top of the queue. And when it comes to specifically when you're doing technical SEO audits, my advice has always been give as few recommendations as possible. If you can get it down to 5, give 5. If you can get it down to one thing, one really, really important thing that they could do, get it down to that. Do not deliver, here's 100 things you can do. Like, you can do an audit with Sitebulb and it will spit out everything that it finds, everything from those critical things to the low, like really less important things, which you can do, right? But, you're probably not going to get a whole ton of benefit from doing it. And so, yeah, it really comes down to the potential impact from a search perspective, rather than, that's always how I've viewed it, rather than here's the potential uplift of doing these things. Because I think that's kind of forecasting when it comes to technical stuff is very finger in the air. And, it's difficult to do unless you're doing tons and tons of like A/B test type analysis, like if you've seen Search Pilot, those sorts of tools where you can definitively say, right, we can make this change and it will have that impact. It's very, very difficult to say. But if you know that a particular issue is going to have an impact on crawling, rendering, indexing, then you know that it's worth fixing.
Well, now we're cooking with gas, because that detail is so critical for content. Most people do not know their content efficiency. So how many content creation and update actions does their team take? And how frequently are those successful, right? Are they successful achieving their goals, right? So imagine your technical infrastructure is causing your efficiency rates, your content hit rates, how many, hits you get for every page you touch or create. That's why everybody should want this, right? What if the content on your page isn't being rendered the way you think it is, right? And that is actually the thing influencing. And then part 2 here is and I always practice this as well. I might have the reference appendix of all 140 projects we could do, but it's about 5 of them. And it's about who they impact. Do they impact my team only? Is this something that's just do this for good health? Like, we want, I always wanted like perfect redirection, right? I wanted no doubles, no redirect chains. And it was always like, okay, well, if we implement this project, how much traffic is this going to give us? It's like, I just want it to be beautiful. So you got to be able to say, the upside advantage. The same thing goes for content. So when you're doing a content audit and content inventory, coming out of it and saying, yeah, there's like 6,000 different plans we could build. It's a complete mess. I know a lot of practitioners try to then build editorial calendars because that's their way of like slotting it over time. But a critical win from what you described is pick 3 or 4, pick 5 at max, and say, here's our quick wins with content updates. Here's our quick wins with content creation. here's 3 business initiatives that we could focus on. Here's a cluster of content about X, here's about Y, here's about Z, and we need 10 articles here, 20 here, and 30 here. So I'm creating a prioritization framework with this inventory. And it really resonated with me. It's like, don't give them the whole set. You're going to have the entire, kit and caboodle when you're doing the research. That's why a content inventory is huge. And that's why traditionally it was painful. But what comes out of it is a small, beautiful package that everybody can rally around. And I think it's very similar to what you were saying, right?
Yeah, and I think as well, like what you just mentioned there, like you also need to take into account who needs to do this work and who needs to own this work. So there's no point in going to a content team and saying, right, all these navigation links need fixing, because they're not going to be able to touch that, or in a lot of cases, that's going to have to go to the dev team, who are going to have to go and edit the page templates, which the content team probably don't have access to, right? And so you need to start going, well, of these list of things to do, who's gonna be the people or person that's gonna do them, and like how is that actually going to happen, right? So you just going, well, here's a problem. Here's the issue I found. It affects all these pages. That is much less helpful and impactful than going, well, here's the problem. This is why it's important. But also now, this is where it lives, right? And again, this goes back to your page template. So, right, you can go, right, here's a list of 5,000 broken links. Crack on, get them fixed. Or you can go, right, here's a list of 5,000 broken links. I've identified the template for you. It's all on the product page template. If you could assign this to the developer and get them to fix that page template, you will fix all 5,000 links in one fell swoop, right? And going to that detail of actually digging through what's the root cause here of the problem, and who's going to own actually fixing it. Again, that will help with your buy-in, and that will help with actually getting things done, which is genuinely like the bane of all SEOs, and like the problem with all tech SEO audits is not the doing the audit, not the giving the audits to the client or to the dev team. It's actually getting the stuff implemented. And again, that's another reason why you really, really want to limit the number of things that you include on there, so that you're not just overwhelming them with a pile of stuff, because anyone looks at a pile of stuff and goes, I don't want to start that. I'm going to go and do this thing over there, right?
I just find it to be such a paradox, though, because if you ask somebody, they just want to see the projects and they would just want to see them prioritized. But if you just give them the high level projects, then they want to know how it's done. And that's where I think you do need to find the happy medium. And the same thing goes with content. I think, I don't know what your framework for content audits is, but I've seen so many. It's keep it as is. It's update and optimize. It's migrate. It's delete in some cases. So how do you think about that? And do you add things onto that tag? What are the ways that you can put a prioritization number on it, but are there ways that you do it to sell those projects internally for content touches?
Yeah. So for me, there's some, like the process of going through a content audit. You end up with your big long inventory, and then you need to do qualitative work, right? You need to decide what buyer persona each URL is targeting, what buyer stage it's targeting. And then you need to do what you were just saying there, end up with the 4 status that I always used is keep the page as it is, improve the page, consolidate pages, and remove pages. And then obviously there's loads of sort of different ways you can go about doing them. But like the big overall thing is you need to keep as many pages as possible as is. Again, because you cannot give someone, right, there's 10,000 pages to improve. Like, it's never going to happen. And so I think starting to then bucket down to get your prioritization has to start going into the opportunity. So what keywords are we trying to rank for? What is the potential traffic that you can get from these? When it's in terms of looking at your inventory itself, and and then sort of grouping actions together. So, right, we're going to remove all these pages. Here's the reason why, but then into the detail of how you're going to do that, because you can't just say to someone, just remove the pages, right? Because you'll end up in all sorts of technical bother. So you need to, the full set of instructions needs to go through, right? So this page needs to be 404 or 410, right? That's what needs to happen. But then all of the links to these pages need to get updated or removed from the system. So you can't just go, well, just remove it. You have to have the following instructions, right? And again, when it comes to consolidation, I think consolidation is a really interesting one, because you can have.
Before we get into that, before we get into consolidation, by the way, this is where everybody makes their money with this webinar right here. Is when we go through this, we're going to go through it the opposite direction. So, wrong reasons to remove pages, remove and 404, or versus remove and always migrate, right? And what are the wrong reasons to remove versus what are the right reasons to remove in your eyes? The most commonly made mistake right now in this world by people doing migrations and people doing content audit is deleting content because they read someone write a blog post that says delete a whole bunch of stuff and it's the right thing to do. Almost never the right thing to do is delete in 404. Personal perspective, I would love you to tell me otherwise, but what's the wrong reasons to delete? Best reasons to delete, when to 404, when to migrate. This is the master class, I think, today on this.
So the wrong reasons to delete for me are when you are only ever looking at quantitative data, right? So you've got your list, you've got your Google Analytics traffic in there, you've got your search console traffic in, search console data in there. You're looking through your list and going, right, no traffic, delete, right? And you haven't looked into all the things we said before. Why is there no traffic, right? And like the outside of like the page is broken or it doesn't render or it can't be accessed. A really, really common reason why pages don't have traffic is just because they're buried. And again, like we won't go too much into the technical SEO stuff, but internal link equity is the most important lever that you can use to improve your website. Improve from a technical SEO perspective in terms of helping pages rank better is point more internal links at them, point more relevant internal links at them. You can help a page that is getting no traffic, that is right at the bottom of your list, that you're sat there going, I want to delete this page. You can if you realize that actually the page has value or could have value, you can then go, right, well, actually, if we just point a whole bunch of links at this page, make it more prominent in the site, all of a sudden it will start getting that traffic. And so a really like the number one thing you can do wrong is to only ever look at the data and never look at the page itself.
I love that. And you said it before, and you said, what stage is this appropriate for? What personas is this appropriate for? And having, and you say quantitative only, right? Deleting in case of no traffic or low traffic, deleting based on external inbound link profile, right? That page might be 9 clicks away from your homepage and only is accessible through one place. First of all, your editorial team needs to know that page is, in the eyes of a crawler, is not important. You can make it important through internal linking. I mean, MarketMuse has 2 solutions for internal linking. One is our site level heat map, which is a 10-hour cluster analysis problem. If you just link together the most relevant pages, logically, you're going to have part 1. Then part 2, we have where you walk down the topic model, and it's very similar to internal page rank analysis based linking. And the other way to do it is to know your site structure and know the tendencies that pages have to be, I hate the word, but orphaned or put into level 7 or level 8 of the site. When you can find the tendency and say, oh, well, a blog we used to call it a date dropping. If you use the standard date-based archive on a blog and you don't give old posts ways in, well, over time, your blog posts naturally degrade and get less access points. So your old pages so you might have that date drop effect, and you'll get these practitioners going, oh, it's all about content decay. No, the information architecture of your site creates the decay.
Yeah. Yeah,
Let's go
it's
here.
broken.
Come on, right?
And this is what one of the key features in Sitebulb is. We have this crawl maps, right? So you crawl your website, and then you can see visually how the pages link together. Mm-hmm. And when you have those situations where essentially you've got, by design, you've got this pagination system where you've got, page 42 and it's from 2014 or whatever, you will see these paginations. There'll be these big long whips in your crawl map, and you can look at this thing, like you can take 5 seconds looking at this map and go, okay, there's a pagination thing going on here. And it's not that pagination's bad. Right. It's really then about, is the stuff from 2014 still valuable? Right. And it might not be. And like that is where you can start to go, right, actually, this is we're talking about an event that happened in 2014. It's not a recording of the event. This is just telling people when the event's going to be. This is not valuable anymore. This is not helping anybody. There's nobody in the current user journey that's going to get satisfied by this content. And that's when you have the good reasons to get rid of pages. So in terms of then other good reasons of getting rid of pages is when they don't actually satisfy any of your buying stages or any of your user journeys, right? And they're not targeted at any of your personas. When you actually look at the content and go, right, maybe things have changed, right? Like we say, a lot changes in a few years in a lot of businesses. You could have been targeting a whole different set of buyers. Your marketing strategy's evolved, but your old content hasn't been updated to bring it up in line. And it's when you look at those pages and go, it's going to be more work to bring that up to speed and reposition it for a new persona than it is to just completely start again, right? And in those cases, you can go, do you know what? It's not worth it. Let's just cut our losses, and we don't need this content. It's not offering us anything at this point. So like that, when I said before,
and that's when to interrupt you, and that's when you get into the quantitatives, right? That's when you get and say, okay, well, it was talking about this event from 2014. It's
and
but,
no traffic,
but it has a lot of power. It's got a lot. It was woven into our site. It has a lot of internal link structure embedded to it. It generated a lot of external inbound links. Can we get creative and have this be part of a consolidation, or have this be part of an update motion? Get it into the right place. Or when do you start to do that? So moving on to your concepts of improving and consolidating, when to do one, when to do the other, when not to do it, doing it for the wrong reasons, etc.
Yeah, so I think that example of when you would want to consolidate is exactly like that, right? So when your decision about the value of the page existing on its own is no, it probably shouldn't. Right. But when the data, your quantitative data supports something existing.
There has to be something. Yeah, exactly.
Right. There should be something. Right. Event from 2014, but like you say, you could have two events from 2014. One of them doesn't rank for anything, doesn't have any traffic, no impressions. Whether or not it's got internal link equity, if it's got no external links pointing at it, right? It's got no links from other websites pointing at it. That's a candidate for the drop. But then the one you were talking about, where we had a whole load of buzz about this. This was a big thing. You can start going, right, well, how can we consolidate this into something that has value? Right. And then again, you have to get creative, and you have to start thinking, right, well, if we create a best events page or something, and you can start going, right, well, let's have a best events page. We can talk about this event that we had back in 2014. We can have some pictures on there or whatever, right? And then what we're going to do is then we're going to hit a 301 redirect from the old page to the new page. It's not going to exist in this overall site structure anymore, but we are going to take the value from that page and include it in another one. And it's very easy to sort of think, okay, well, and it's sort of, this was always what tech SEOs would do back in the day, and maybe content marketers as well, was when you get rid of an old page, always redirect it. And like the common knowledge was, right, let's say you discontinue a product, all we're going to do is 301 redirect that product up to the parent category page. And then a few years later, Google came out and said, no, we're not gonna count that stuff anymore. Like, that's just, you're not really doing what we should be doing here. Like, the point of a 301 redirect is to say that this page content is moved, or you can find this same information in this different page over there. And by going from product to category, it's not doing that, right? You're now redirecting from a product that no longer exists to a completely different, well, not completely different, but a category that's not actually now about the product. So as long as the content that you end up producing when your consolidation work is topically the same thing, it's covering a lot of the same ground, then your 301 should end up having the same value. So if someone is browsing one of the sites that happened to mention your event in the first place, and they click on one of those links and go they're actually going to see content about that event, right? And that's how you get around that. But then consolidation is.
Well, stopping real quick, so people might not be familiar with something you said. So catch-alling or bulking, where you're going, it's like meets minimum on an audit, like at least send it somewhere, make it not a 404, isn't providing a ton of value. It's giving a little bit of value. It's not giving as much. So when you decide, I'm going to send everything to my homepage that I took off, cool. Okay, well, it's worth a penny. If you had been creative, you could have made that worth 92 cents, right? But you made that overt decision to bulk it or catch-all it. And that means catch-all means catch all of a particular type of URL structure and send it to one place, right? Bulking would be send all of my error pages or send all of my remove pages to the home page or to their parent in the category tree, right? So those types of things are different than making a concerted decision to, and they call that flashing, what you described, right? Where it's like, I know I'm going to have I'm analyzing the price of silver, right? And every month I'm going to have a new page, and I'm going to replace the old page with the new one, and I need an archive page. It's like, get ahead of that, get ahead of your event archive. You're going to have a prevailing event, and then you're going to have event archives, and they're going to make sense, and you're going to have best events. Same thing with, the price of silver. You're going to have a, chronology of all the ratings, right? You want to get ahead of
it's that evergreen, right? It's the evergreen content that you want.
Making your temporal content evergreen, right? That's the strategy there. It's always relevant to have that historical record if you've mapped it into a beautiful structure. Because that's the way you describe that. I love that. I love those examples. So improving content, obviously we can get into like when to update, when to optimize, when to consolidate. Are there ever strategic reasons to consolidate? One clear example for me is that thin content should have never existed on its own. Maybe needs a parent page, needs some, it needs to be, and I can win. You got to be able to win with a consolidated page too. So how do you learn that? How do you get somebody to go, when do I update a page versus when do I smash it together with its buddies?
So I think when you're thinking about consolidation, you're at that point where this page shouldn't exist, right? Mm-hmm. As it is. But we need to do something else with it. And I think the most common type of consolidation that you'll find is when you have lots of content or lots of pages that are either loosely or directly targeting the same set of people, the same set of keywords, the same user stage of the user journey, the same persona, right? And when you have these, yet they're sort of spread across a whole load of different pages and they're not performing well, that's when you should be looking at it and going, right, well, I've got this page here which has a small amount of content that's doing a very specific thing. It's not really getting any search traffic or anything like that. But I've got another page over here that's targeting the same personas. It's doing something similar. Why don't I just push these two things together? And so why don't I take that content up, now I'm going to include it on the other page, and I'm going to set that 301 redirect up. Right, I'm going to go and update all my links, right, so you don't miss the technical steps as well. But you then end up with one page that's stronger, improved by having the new content on it, and you've got rid of your sort of problem page that was potentially causing you issues. And like this collection of pages that are all sort of targeting the same people or the same problems can cause you technical SEO problems as well. So you can have what's called cannibalization, right? So you can have keyword cannibalization from, let's say you have two pages which are reasonably strong, but they're literally targeting the same set of keywords. And Google will one day go, right, page A is going to be number 5. And then the next day, we're gonna try page B there, right? Page B, we're gonna put a number 7, and page A, in the 30s, 40s, it's just totally disappeared, and they won't know which is the best result, so they'll flip them between them. And really, what you want to end up having is one really strong page, not two that are sort of competing with one another. And that's the sort of cannibalization bit, is they're eating their own search traffic. So you end up with a worse situation. You end up with bouncing rankings like this. And overall, if you go, when actually I can see this happening, or I can see the potential for this to happen, I can see that they're targeting the same stuff. Let's push them together. Let's have one mega page that's got all of the stuff on, that's targeting all the same people, all the same keywords, and let's set a redirect from essentially the weaker page to the stronger page. That's really what you want to be doing, like trying to decide which one does Google tend to prefer, right, in terms of rankings, which ones have got the most internal links, which one's got the most external links pointing at it, which one's ranking for the most, more stuff, to make a decision. Right, this one's stronger, okay, let's keep that one, and we'll get rid of the old one, and we'll take that content and push it in here and set a redirect to it.
Well, I know there's probably people that are waiting for me to say, be really, really sure that you're right in a cannibalization dynamic. It is so rare that cannibalization is the only outcome is to smash them together into one. There wasn't other ways to do it. Cannibalization is so quite frequently mislabeled cannibalization when those two pages actually were different. So that you had a very, very important condition. It was these two pages are really, really the same, and they're focused on the same intents. They're focused on the same targets. It's just a little bit of difference, and that's the case. But if they can be made to be on different intents, just because they have both historically ranked for a particular term does not make that cannibalization. And that yin and that yang has been so misappropriated. What is cannibalization versus what it's not. So be sure, you can be confident that these two pages are absolutely identical from the standpoint of target market, target topics, because sometimes that can backfire when you think, oh gosh. And I see this happen when two completely different pages, and maybe one page is starting to rank for keyword variants of the parent.
Yeah.
And like the team's like, no, I don't want that. I want that page I want it to rank for my other page. And they'll consolidate and say, oh, it's cannibalizing. No. You were actually building clusters of content. You were actually doing the right thing. You were building more appropriate pages for those other intents. And so misclassifying variant targeted pages and cluster development as consolidation and consolidating based on cannibalization. Be darn sure it's truly a cannibalization before you take action. Anything to say on that?
Yeah, I mean, exactly that. And I think the cannibalization conversation is not just about the keywords, right? It should also be about, you've got two pages here which are targeting the same people. They're doing the same job. Like, the content is very similar. Like, why do they exist like this, right?
You
And
need an
like,
answer to that. Yeah,
yeah, like
exactly right.
what is going on here? And like it really then falls upwards or downwards, whichever we want to look at it, into improving. And like
Yeah.
you say, right, can we do a reasonably small amount of work to just slightly change the focus of this piece to move it away from awareness type content to consideration content, or to move it from this persona to that persona, because we want this content to exist. We know we're trying to target these people, but we've somewhere along the line we've gone astray with it.
Yep.
And you know, and that's one of the key things that you want to be doing with improve.
I love it. Yeah, no, I think I love it. And, you know, just being sensitive on time. And we've had a few questions. I actually had a few DMs on Twitter as cannibalization was the discussion, because they know how passionate I am about cannibalization. So thank you, all of you, for DMing me going, uh-oh, Jeff's going to start ranting about cannibalization. The key being, right, don't let people say that a second page or a third page on the same topic has to be cannibalization. They're wrong. If it's on a different stage, as Patrick talked about, if it's in the different part of the journey, if it's focusing on a variant, if it's focusing on a different industry or persona, you need it. It's not optional, and it's definitely not cannibalization. And that's really something you can live by. And so a Sitebulb solution, something that allows you to see those clusters, to see the clusters you intended on getting, and a MarketMuse solution, which shows you the clusters you actually got in the eyes of a search engine or a relevance-based search engine. Dovetailing those two things together, I intended on my clusters to look like this, but to the search engines, I actually look like this. Well, when you bring those two things together, it's a really, really beautiful thing. And you know whether you have coverage in the middle of the funnel, and you know where you have gaps, and you know, hey, I need to write these 20 articles. And it's because of these things. So I love the way you've described the what, the why, and like the how much, even in the way that you described this. And Patrick, this has been so actionable. I think if you are a content marketing professional or a content person, or maybe only an editor, you're really just touching content, you do want to know this stuff, right? You want to know whether your content is going to put its best foot forward. And putting its best foot forward means it's got to be accessible, structured properly. It's got to be with its friends, with its, you know, appropriately connected to its friends, and it's got to be able to be successful. And I think that, you know, more so than anything, you know, solutions like Sitebulb, and specifically Sitebulb, you know, do that better than anything. Go check out MarketMuse to get a personalized content audit and inventory. Go check out MarketMuse, book demo, analyze your site, tell you everything you'd want to know about prioritizing. We'll tell 2 plans. We'll only make it 2. We won't make it 100. And you can do the same thing with Sitebulb too. There's a free offering, right?
We have actually a extended free trial for MarketMuse users. So if you go to sitebulb.com/MarketMuse, all one word, you can get a 60-day free trial from there. So normally our free trials are 14 days, no credit card or any of that stuff. It's just you go, as long as you sign up on that URL, you will get a 60-day free trial, and yeah, you can have a play with it, and you can see what happens. You can look at the crawl maps, which we've been talking about. You can look through all the hints and all that sort of stuff. Additionally,
oh my God, 60 day Sitebulb free trial, sitebulb.com/MarketMuse.
MarketMuse, yeah.
That is worth the price of admission. Okay, continue. Sorry. Yes.
Sorry. So we've talked a whole lot about sort of the whys and the wherefores, but not as much about actually how you go about doing this. Myself and Stephen from MarketMuse are working on a blog post for the MarketMuse blog, which will give a lot more of that sort of depth and like the how-to, and more details on all the things we talked about with the keeping, improving, consolidating. So I don't know exactly when that's coming out, but you know, a lot of it's already written, so it should be coming out soon. So keep an eye out for that as well. And that will hopefully fill in some of the gaps that we didn't get to cover because we chatted so much.
Hey, well, no, I think this is really actionable. And as 2 people who have done, I mean, I know I've done probably thousands of technical audits in my life, as scary as that sounds, and I know you have too. And Steven just said, yes, we're working on that blog post. But if you have any questions about content auditing, technical auditing, or anything, get a hold of Patrick, get a hold of me, shoot us a note. I answer everything, as people will tell you, Twitter, Jeffrey_Coyle, Jeff@marketmuse.com. Patrick is on LinkedIn, very active. Hathaway P on Twitter. Any other ways to get in contact with you?
Yeah, I mean, they're the best ones. Yeah, Twitter, I'm more active actually than LinkedIn. So Twitter is where I go to hang out. So yeah, Twitter's the best place.
Yes. Well, it's an interesting place for SEOs, that's for sure. But no, Patrick, it's been such an awesome pleasure. I think that anyone that listens to this understand, expertise in these fields is hard. It is hard. But solutions like Sitebulb, solutions like MarketMuse, making it easier to get started, easier to prioritize your first plan, prioritize your first project, make a quick hit list of the top 3, initiatives, and they're not likely going to be all that hard to implement.
I think anyone can do it, right?
Get buy off internally, and I think that should be your task if this is something new to you. But the insights you gave us about removing, consolidating, improving, when to do it, when not to do it, I think worth their weight in gold. And I truly appreciate your insight and taking the time to work with us today. So
awesome. Well, thank you very much for having me, and hope everyone enjoyed it.
Thanks, Patrick. Talk to you soon. See ya.
Cheers. Bye.